Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We are into a simulated game week, getting a lot of stuff done for our first game against SEMO. Also doing a lot of evaluation still with some of our younger players as well as on special teams because we know that we've got to continue to push some of the younger players that are going to have to help us throughout the year. So we're not doing exclusive scout team stuff, but we're doing a little bit of that, and then quite a bit of K-State versus K-State still, just because we need to continue to evaluate players. And then next week we'll pour all of our attention into SEMO. But finished up fall camp really good. Had a lot of bumps and bruises like a lot of teams do. I don't think we lost anybody for a significant time. There'll be some guys that'll be game time decisions, but for the most part, we had a pretty successful fall camp as far as the injury bug is concerned, and we're excited about where we are with our team. We know where our strengths are at certain positions. We know where our depth is, that we have to continue to push some younger players. That's part of the reason why we're having the schedule like we are this week, but a lot of work still to be done here before we get into game week.
You mentioned before that you've got older players, you have 21 days, work hard every day, no regrets. How did they carry that out, and what impressed you?
Yeah, I thought we had a really good fall camp in the fact that we didn't have any off days, bad days, and you shouldn't have any off days, bad days when you have the amount of experience that we have. Now, the offense got after the defense some, the defense got after the offense some, but it was never probably a dominant day from one side of the ball to the other. It was periods here and there that were dominated. So, it was 21 really good days where guys got after it, never were complacent, never kind of just got through the practice. But I credit our leaders on that.
I got to ask you the same question I always ask. Who maybe impressed you?
Boy. There's a lot of guys. Jacob Parrish is a really, really good football player that we all know about, but has really taken his game to the next level. R.J. Garcia, in my mind, a lot of people know about, was a role player last year, similar to Jacob, really took his game to another level. Those are two guys that people know about that I think have really elevated their play.
Last time we were out of practice, we didn't get to see Daniel Green or Uso out there. How have they been progressing?
Yeah. I think Daniel will practice towards the end of this week is the plan. Worst case scenario, it'll be next week. Uso will work into next week before we know. He won't practice this week, but once again, it's not long term with Uso. So we're hopeful he could play SEMO, but probably be middle of next week before we know.
With all the experience you have now doing this and your assistants, does it feel like training camp just goes by smoother or better than it did in previous years?
Yes, until this year when we had all the space we had. Being the fact that we always were on the grass fields or at the Bill, you get into a routine, and then you go up where we were at with the Shamrock Indoor and having the outdoor field. Just that much more space allowed us to do a lot more things. We found kids ran a lot more. Our catapult numbers were much higher than they were than in previous fall camps. That's where we've probably learned the most as far as utilizing all that space that we have. We weren't locked into each group's got 50 yards. Each offense or defense had a full 100 yards, and that was, I think, a huge benefit for us.
Are there any roster spots where it's just still the competition is so strong you wouldn't know where to rank guys heading into game one?
We're still fighting for, I would say, that fourth, fifth, sixth wide receiver behind Keegan, Phil, and RJ. I think it's a good battle there because we're going to play those fourth, fifth, and sixth guys, and I think that's an ongoing process. Our safety position still lacks some depth that we've got to continue to shore up and work on. Everybody knows who Kobe Savage is, and Colby McAllister's had a good camp. How can we move him around to see what he can do? Jordan Wright's had a good camp. How can we move him around? There's There's a lot of unknowns there still because we're pretty young in the secondary. Those two spots in particular, I mean, everybody knows Austin Moore's one of the best linebackers in the conference, if not the country. Who's going to take some of the lion's share reps behind him? Those are things we're still figuring out.
Coach, you've been able to go early enough to mitigate the challenges of the weather during the last 2 weeks?
Up until this week. I mean, we went on Sunday inside, but in a shorter practice. Saturday was a long, hard practice, but it was pretty good weather-wise. We did not practice yesterday when the heat really hit. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, potentially Friday of this week, it looks like the weather is going to be really extreme. And so we're going to practice, but we're going to be really cautious about what we do. We're going to cut back on some things, probably add a few more breaks. If you look to an extended forecast, it could be upwards of upper 90s to 100 on early September. So we have to be cautious and make sure that we're having all of our safety protocols with our players, but we'll be out there a little bit in it, just being smart.
How has Carver Willis embraced the right tackle spot, and how's he progressed?
He's getting better and better. And when you have to go against Duke and Matlock and Mott every day, you have nowhere to go but to get better because those three guys are going to play their tail off every snap. And so I've been impressed with Carver. I'm excited for him to have an opportunity. I know that we're mixing and matching so that, who's going to be that other right tackle? Is it going to be Drake Beckwith? Is it going to be Andrew Leingang? Is it going to be Cooper Beebe? I don't know. We're still moving guys around because of not having Duff probably early on in the season. So that's what we're still trying to look at and just continuing to manipulate those lineups so that we don't get caught short at a position.
Do you feel like that place kicker position has begun to take shape?
It's still a competition. I think I thought Leighton really started off strong. And Chris maybe was a little behind him. This is naked eye. Chili Davis, our special teams QC, would probably give me more direct numbers, which I haven't asked him for yet. I just want to see the feel of it. I think as of late, Chris has done a really nice job and has elevated his play. But I like what Leighton's doing. I think Chris is the best kickoff guy right now. And then Simon's going to come in and help us too. He's punting with Jack. And so we have good competition there. And that's what excites me is it's not like we have to take a Ty Zentner and say, hey, man, now we got to have you kick field goals. We have a number of guys that can kick field goals and a couple guys that can punt. So I think the competition will continue to be ongoing. And I think the guys like it that way in the fact they're always being pushed.
Where do you think you made your biggest strides during fall camp?
I would say probably the depth at defensive line. I think Cody Stufflebean is a guy that's going to have to be a real factor for us, and I think he knows it, and I think he can give us some real good reps in there. Damian Alalio and Javon Banks have upped their reps with Uso out, and I've liked what those guys have done in there. We talked about Mott, Duke, and Matlock being really, really good. And then Chidi, Obi Izor is a really good player. We got to look at him and playing him potentially as a freshman because he's that talented. And so we have a number of those guys in depth in the defensive line that I'm excited about. And we're continuing to improve on special teams. We've kept our older guys out of a lot of the special team stuff that have had hundreds and hundreds of reps year after year and tried to push more of our newer, younger guys. So I think you're going to see, at least in the non-con, a lot of newer, younger players on some of those special teams rather than just having the Austin Moores and Des Purnells and Jake Cliftons and Seth Porters on every one of those. We've got to spread those around so that we find more players on those teams.
Touched on it a little bit. I think you're still determining the true freshmen and which ones will see the field. Do you know any that you'll probably be out there game one at this point?
No, we don't. Potentially I would say Asa Newsom would be one. he would be probably, and Joe Jackson's got a chance on special teams as well as, being a third or fourth back. I mean, it just depends on how these guys progress over the next 10 days to 2 weeks to make sure that they're comfortable, coaches are comfortable. But we've probably have 8 to 10 true freshmen that we are still heavily evaluating that we think can play. I mean, it could be as high as that many numbers in the freshmen. Obviously, there's a number of them that are going to redshirt because they have development, but we have 8 to 10 that can help us.
7 captains. One, why that many? And 2, how did it shake out? Did it shake out the way you thought?
And that's exactly why we have 7. In the past I've had 5 or 6, but there were 7 guys that had substantial amount of votes, and between 6 and 7 was really close, and I didn't want to only have 6 when the 7th one, the voice of the team, because the team votes on it, the voice of the team said there were 7, and so it'll work itself out. We'll rotate the guys out there on game day.
Of each of the quarterbacks, what has kind of each one done over the past month that's really stood out to you and impressed you?
Leadership, confidence, running the whole thing with Will. I think Will's had a really good camp. Jake, belief, leading the team, understanding our offense, playing within himself, has done a really good job. Adrian Lara, tremendous arm strength, making sure to dial it back some when he knows the play's not there, because he's got the arm talent to put it in any spot. But I've seen really good growth out of him. Avery, the amount of gains he has from spring to fall has been tremendous, of learning our offense in the spring to running our offense in the fall. And he continues to impress me on a day-to-day basis with how much he can handle. Everybody knows he's got a world of ability, but just how much he can handle of what we're doing offensively. And then Jacob Knuth, who we'll have as our scout team quarterback, that transferred in. Tremendous athlete, really good arm talent, just is a ways away because he just got here. But as CK would tell you, we've got a really strong QB room.
And then with Trayshawn being full go, how has that running back room kind of meshed and then kind of gotten along?
Yeah, it's been great to see all those guys healthy and practicing every day. Anthony Frias is the one that I've been so impressed with on a day-to-day basis of how much he improved from last fall to this fall. I don't know how many snaps he's going to get. I don't know what positions we're going to put him into. He's improved on special teams, and he'll be a guy that's right now on the bus and always going to be a factor because he's really good at certain areas. DJ's had a great camp. Excited about DJ. He's becoming more and more a complete back. He's playing with confidence. He knows our offense. He just wants us to go live some because he wants to come downhill and punish people. But I'm excited about DJ. And then Trayshawn has been really good. Just trying to get him to understand everything from routes to protection to how to be patient on certain runs because it's a different offense than what he played in. But electric with the ball in his hands and really good out of the backfield, really good to flex out, and it can be an in between the tackle runner. So we're excited about the depth we have in that room.
As far as kick and punt return, what have you kind of learned over this process?
Phil, right now, for sure on punt return, probably going to give Phil the first opportunity on kickoff return because he's earned the right and he understands our return really well. It's interesting because what makes a lot of our return go and why Malik had so much success is our off returner in Phil. And so we hate to take that away because of how well Phil understands the timing of everything. But in the same respect, it'd be another opportunity for us to get some touches to Phil in the kick return game. And then there's a handful of other guys, wide receivers, running backs, defensive backs that we're putting back there to continue to gain experience.
You mentioned the camp that Will had. How much more confident is he this year coming into the season than maybe in the past? Well,
he's always been a confident guy. It's the belief that he knows that he understands what the defense is doing. He understands what we're doing. His ability to see the pressure, change the protection, change the play, have a run play called, know that we don't like that picture without having to look at a coach and say, nope, I'm changing it to run the ball here. Those are the things that, Skyler was doing in his last year, last couple years, that we've had quarterbacks in our system that have been able to do, that I think makes him playing at such a high level of this play has no chance to work in how we called it. We've got enough time on the play clock that he can be patient and change the play, change the protection, do whatever he needs to do to get us in a positive play. That's where I've probably seen the most growth out of him. He's got really good arm talent, and he was able to display that last year. It's continued to get better and better, and he's, even though we haven't gone live with him, he's running the ball with a lot of authority.
There's like 27 nicknames for Will Howard. Do you have a nickname for Will?
Will. Howie. Everything. He's just he's such a fun guy to be around because he truly enjoys the journey, and that's what I appreciate. He had some hard times, as everybody knows, but he never wore those emotions on his sleeve, which is a credit to him. And now he's enjoying the fruits of the labor. That kid's put the time in, the work ethic in, and if it's a day like this where it's going to be 110 degrees heat index or something, he's going to be ready to go, and he's going to make sure those offensive guys are ready to go because he loves playing, and he's having a blast because he knows what he's doing, and he's doing it at a high level.
And Desmond Purnell's going to be the Sam linebacker. What'd you like about his camp?
I probably could have mentioned him as well as I could have mentioned Jacob Parrish as a guy on the defensive side that just wow of what he's done because Dez has been a really good football player for us and a steady player for us. I think he has a chance to be a difference maker for us. Very, very difficult to block. Understands leverage, understands how we want him to play the Sam backer. It was a pretty good competition we assumed coming into camp, and he's stepped up to the forefront as the for sure starter there. That he's playing really well, and he'll have a huge impact. He's not going to be a role player; he's going to be an impact player.
You talked a little bit about the safeties, but with the three safeties, how much difference is there in those positions, and how are they slotted into set ones, or are you mixing?
Yeah, we need to be able to mix and match. Siegel's been the free safety. We've tried to stay with him there. VJ Payne's been the jack, but has played free and has played strong, so that gives us some versatility there. Kobe Savage is the strong safety, but has the ability to play two of the three. Colby McAllister is a guy that could play all three of them, we believe. Mashmeyer could play a couple of them. He's going to have to help us in there. We like Jack Fabris as a young player that's got a chance. We're just solely focusing on him as a jack. He's been nicked up a little bit, so he's missed the last 3 or 4 days, but he's done some good things. And then Jordan Wright, we've been, he came in as a corner all camp, and then we've put him at a little bit of free safety, so you might see him as a free safety simply because he's a tremendous athlete, really fast kid that we're blessed right now to have good depth at corner so that we've been able to push him inside. He could still play corner tomorrow for us, but we've just pushed him inside to give us some more depth at safety.
At corner right now, Jacob and Will Lee or
Jacob,
Keenan?
Will Lee, and Keenan Garber. Those three in my mind I would see rotating, and then Justice James isn't that far behind them. And then Tyler Nalome has been nicked up a lot of camps, so we still haven't seen the best of Tyler probably yet.
Chris, and maybe you have to see a game, maybe you don't, but is the personality of this team different than the team that played Alabama?
Yeah, I have no idea. We're going to find out when adversity strikes, and when things are going great, you love the personality of your team. When there's adversity, and we're going to have adversity early on in the season for sure. How are we going to respond? And when I say that, how are we going to respond when there's adversity on offense, when we get stuffed? How are we going to respond on defense when we can't stop somebody, or if we're not doing something well on teams? That's when we decide and figure out what kind of team we have.
And from now to day one when you walked into Manhattan, do you feel like you've changed, evolved as a head coach? What's different about?
I'm a lot older and a lot grayer and a lot balder. Everything. No, it's been fortunate. The staff has maintained intact. We've lost a coach here or there, but the core people that came with us in 2019 are still here. And so I don't have to worry about, hey, are we going to get this drill going? BA knows how to run the drill. We're going to get this thing going over here. Riles will figure that out, or Buddy will figure. We just have guys that if I'm not there to start something or I'm not there, they figure it out. And they're confident and they know that I'm not going to micromanage them to say, yep, this is what coach would want. This way we're rolling with it. And so that's probably where, and the players know it too. I mean, if none of us coaches were out there, they could start the practice, they could continue on, and they could probably finish the practice. And if I had Will Howard and Daniel Green in charge of both sides and Seth Porter in charge of special teams, we probably could practice without all of us out there. That's what I was hoping for, and that takes a long time to get to where we're at. But thanks to all the support staff, biggest praise to Coach True and his staff is why we've been able to do that.
Is that something that evolved over time in terms of delegating and trusting your staff and not feeling like you have to do everything?
Yeah, it takes time, and Joe and Connor have been with me a long time, but we're meshing different people and meshing more people, with QCs and GAs and stuff. But it's I think the guys are at a comfortable level, but remain uncomfortable, and I think that's the key. Is you want to make sure and keep our players on edge, our coaches on edge, that we haven't arrived. We haven't done anything. We still are continuing to grow and develop.
I know you didn't have a vote in the matter, but what do you think will make Seth Porter a good team captain?
Wow. That's a great question for Coach True. And the reason I say that is we brought all of our freshmen in. There's a quick example of Seth Porter. I don't know if you know how hard it is to get through a stretch with Coach True. It's really hard to just get through the stretch, because if you don't do it right, you're going to do up-downs galore. And the freshmen came in the first time in June to start, and I think it was the next day that they started. And Seth sent a note out to all of them and said, get up to the weight room, I'm taking you through the stretch so that you don't screw it up for us. Because if you do an up-down, we're all doing up-downs. That's a small thing that Seth would do as an unselfish kid to make sure that we start teaching these guys right now how to do it the K-State way. And then all the things from special teams to community service to whatever. If Seth's always going to be out front, and I appreciate he's earned that right. He's a former walk-on that earned the right, just like Austin Moore and just like Hayden Gillum. That's pretty cool when you have 3 former walk-ons that are your captains now.
I want to ask, maybe you haven't had a ton of time to think about this just yet, but with Colorado, 2 Arizona schools, and 2 Utah schools now in the Big 12, or at least coming, can you see yourself branching out and recruiting those areas anymore?
Well, we've already had success in Colorado and Arizona, so we'll continue on with those. I don't know if we'll get as far as Utah. Probably not. That's just not going to be a regional footprint for us. But some of that's going to be played out, as well as how are they going to pod this up? How are we going to know? Are we going to play school X, Y, and Z every year and then rotate the other ones? Those are the things that we're going to learn. But right now we're not changing what we're doing in recruiting as far as where our coaches are placed and where the main kids, where we're drawing them from is.
I was just going to ask about, we know what Ben Sennett is. What about the rest of the tight ends?
Garrett Oakley's been a guy that has played really well for us as a redshirt freshman, still learning the game, but really good blocker, strong at the point of attack, really good length, really good speed running down the field. So he'll play a lot for us. Will Swanson, who's been here for a while, has gotten better and better and will have probably a more significant role. Christian Moore's healthy to give us that fullback role. And then Braden Lofton's done some really good things as a young player. He missed most of the spring, so he's a little bit behind, but I've been really excited about what Braden has done. And I think Braden is one of those guys that, with reps these next few weeks, has a really good chance to get in the rotation.